welcome to Season 3, Episode 11 of Relics of Orr. I am your host, Shongaku, and this week I am joined by Evie and Kate. How are you guys doing?
Alright. It's a very dreary...
Dreary Wisconsin day.
Yeah.
I've got my window open, there's sun out. Actually, it's kind of dreary here, too. What's up, Evie?
I'm facing 100% humidity, which is why my hair is the way it is right now, so...
It is pretty amazing. I'm facing, like, 20% humidity.
I'm at, like, 80%, so...
What is this?
What is this? What is this? There we go. Alright.
That'll stop it.
We just had a giant patch. And I'm going to try and summarize it really, really fast. And what we'll do is later on in the week, we will, or actually next week, we will give you guys more feedback on the recent patch. Just gives us a week to play it and get an idea of everything that's going on and sort of get community reaction and sort of condense it into one massive thing. We've already getting some, but for the main things with the patch, they added sound sliders to instruments. Yes. Which means that when someone takes their Vuvuzela and just goes, you can turn that off. You can't turn that off here because you're listening to the audio. But I guess it's actually kind of like this. When I drop that, it's kind of like this. And see, you guys couldn't hear that because I muted myself across the internet. Although Spirit or Kate and Evie could because they did not mute their audio. They added 3 new activities, which we'll be talking about a little bit. Specifically, they added not Sanctum Sprint. They added a Horde mode activity. Which fighting through waves of enemies, which is pretty fun. It can be done solo or in a group, and it scales based on how many people you have in your group, actually. So we're theorizing. We need to experiment with this, but we think 2 people might be the optimal way to do it. Because if it scales like event scale, that's the easiest way to burn through people. Simultaneously, they added a South Sun Survival, which is a sort of a DayZ Hunger Games style game based on the end event from the Beta Weekend 3. So I have not tried that yet. Spirit, you've tried that. Yay? Nay?
Oh, it's wonderful. I'm terrible at it, but the nice thing about it is if you're terrible at it, you aren't out of the game. You turn into a revenge spirit and you get to fly around invisible to the players that are still alive, placing traps beneath their feet and generally harassing them.
Nice.
Which is the only thing I ever get to do, so...
That's pretty fantastic.
I'm consistently top ranking, but I have not won a match yet. I'm consistently like 3rd or 4th.
Apparently, the best way to win a match is get 6 South Sun supplies and then go hide. And then just keep healing yourself.
Well,
that's how you're
win. Marked on the map for the revenge spirits. They can see your dot on the map, so they can come to you and place a karka under your feet.
The problem is, there are places on the map where the revenge spirits can't hit you with anything.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they go when they find places. Also, apparently there's a polar bear on the map. As a lost reference.
I have yet to find the polar bear.
He's in the reef drake cave.
I've been down there a couple times. I keep wanting to hide down there, but I never have enough rations, so I never make it.
Yeah, I think you have to get there with like 6 rations or something. But, so, there's that. There's also Aetherblade, not Aetherblade, sorry. It is...
Aspect Arena?
Aspect Arena. Evie, you've been playing that. Yay? Nay? It's pretty awesome, isn't it? Have you played it, Spirit, Kate?
I played a couple matches. I really want a rucksack because it has a live toucan in it, and I'm just so excited about having a toucan.
Oh man, combine that with pirate runes, and then you can actually send the toucan to attack people.
Mm-hmm.
Except the toucan's still going to be on your back when it goes to attack people.
Except for the fact that the toucan is a Mesmer.
What?
Yes!
What is this? I don't even...
Wait. Tengus can be Mesmers. Why not?
They were trained by the Toucans in the Toucan area to be Mesmers. Like, that was the first Tyrian Mesmer was post Last Dragon Destruction, was in fact a Toucan. And then they taught the the Tengu, who then taught the humans, who then taught everyone else. And that's where mesmerism comes from, everyone.
Yep.
Never mind the bloodstones and all that.
What? No,
Nope.
nope.
Magic
Domination is one of the
toucans.
4 elements of magic. No, it's toucans.
Toucans.
I'm trying to turn that into like a joke, like a gangsta. Like, you can't hang with this toucan, but it's not working. My brain is
Like,
not
You
fast
said that it
enough.
would have been butterflies, but no, toucans. Toucans eat butterflies.
That's right, and that's actually how they power up. They summon all of the butterflies, and then they just eat them, and they're like, "Yeah, I got my magic back. What's up now?" I think we are going to name this episode "Toucan Mesmers." Okay, so they also did some pretty crazy stuff. They with the patch. First of all, they got rid of Necro base jumping, which is stupid, but it makes sense because it was kind of OP in Dub v Dub, where you could jump off a cliff being chased by a whole bunch of people and survive, and then they'd like fall around you because they'd chase you. So they nerfed that. Also, the interesting thing is if they deal enough damage to you, they can damage you through your Death Shroud with their last hit on your Death Shroud, which is a bit of a
Oh.
bummer. Yeah, basically damage will carry over. So if they deal enough damage to end your Death Shroud, any extra damage will hit you, which is going to be a bit rough for Necros, but Necros are pretty dang awesome still anyways, so I think we'll survive. And I understand the we'll talk about this in a little bit when we start talking about some of the PvP stuff, but I trained a warrior and a guardian as well as for a little while. It was the warrior and guardian for most of it, but there was also an elementalist and a thief for a little while who then got bored. I trained them a third of a way across the borderland.
Nice.
Like, I couldn't escape because I'm a necro, but fears and spectral wall and all of this stuff, it was hilarious. Like, they couldn't kill me, and they were doing everything. They were trying to CC me. The warrior switched to a hammer to just try and knock me down, and I kept fearing him as he was, like, leaping at me with his hammer. He gets hit by a fear and runs away. It was hilarious and wonderful. I love Necros. So Necros had a little bit of a nerf to Death Shroud. They had a buff to their staff skills, which I think is fascinating, because now their staff circles are bigger than they were before basic, which is fantastic because it means that they moved the size increase and unblockability to a master trait, so it requires 20 in death, which if you're doing the 30-30-10 that everyone was doing, that is unblockable, and bigger marks were very important to get the bigger marks and make them actually effective. Now you have to actually trait into it. It does make us a little bit less effective against Bunker Guardian, but you're probably speccing into toughness if you're going up against bunkers anyways, and you're not necessarily a pure conditionmancer. You're going to be doing some other stuff. So there's lots of interesting things there for Necros. Not necessarily so much a nerf as just balancing, which I think is good. The Thieves, Evee, and Spirit now have Torment on Shadow Strike. Is that good, bad, or no one uses it?
Admittedly, it's on. So, with Thieves, your 3 skill changes if you've got 2 weapons based on which one is in your main hand and offhand. So, Pistol Dagger is not the same as Dagger Pistol, and Shadow Strike, I think that's what it's called, is on Pistol Dagger. I've never seen a single person using Pistol Dagger.
So this is probably
Does make it.
It was kind of popular when people were trying to do condition thieves in PvP, because the way you would do it was you'd cloak with dagger offhand and then spam bleeds with 1. Mm-hmm. The main weakness of that build, though, was that it was completely reliant on bleeds. The added torment is nice, but you have to be in melee to use Shadow Strike, and that's a mid-range build. So,
do you get confusion on that build at all?
No.
I think that maybe putting confusion on there so you get bleed, confusion, and torment, I think would probably...
I honestly think that changing a Pistol 2 to confusion and then changing unload from being a direct damage to a more condition-based thing would be a massive boon to pistols.
Well, wouldn't that would fix pistol, but it wouldn't fix pistol offhand other things.
Pistol
It wouldn't
dagger,
fix
for example.
pistol dagger, yeah.
Dagger would still have that niche of loading a bunch of conditions at one time.
What
true.
does pistol dagger load specifically?
Bleeds.
Okay.
You go into stealth and then you use sneak attack, and you put 6 stacks of bleed with sneak attack.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
Just do that over and over.
Except if you're traveling with a necro, you're like, well, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Which is why no one uses it in SPVP
Do
anymore.
thieves ever build...
So just
Do thieves ever build into Rabid?
They did when that was a popular build, but
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
not anymore.
it's-
I say popular, but it wasn't really popular. It was just used.
It was niche.
There's really, like, when it comes to condition damage thieves, they're just not as effective as other classes, really. Like, or, well, they can deal conditions, but they don't have the survivability of a necro or anything, so you're going to always take a necro over a thief. It's just condition thieves aren't at a point where you're going to want one over another class. It doesn't have a good enough trade-off to say, well, we're sacrificing our survivability for this trait. There's no reason to sacrifice anything.
Oh,
You should just take
interesting.
a necro.
Time there were like condition thieves was leaping Death Blossom spam, but that's long gone now. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. We'll talk about that more later, actually, when we get into our SPVP section of the show, which is not actually listed in show notes, but it's going to exist now. Someone wants
Okay.
to. Moving on, though, they did some changes to Rangers, which is kind of cool. Your longbow is getting more buffs. It stacks vulnerability now, which I think is fantastic with the number 2 skill, and it stacks it fast, especially if you use like Quickening Zephyr. Like you can just throw, I think like 10 stacks of vulnerability on someone in a few seconds. It's pretty fantastic. And then simultaneously, you have a stealth skill on a ranger, which I think is interesting. Now, you don't get any like stealth attacks, special attacks, but you can stealth with the number 3 ranger longbow, which I think is interesting.
Is there a use for that I'm not aware? It just, looking at the change, I thought, well, longbow, you're already at 1200 to 1500 range anyway with the trait. What's the point of putting a stealth on when you're going to be that far away from your enemy?
Yeah, there's a few things. It's to drop target. You'll drop target. It's a disengage escape ability. What longbow is offering now is 2 different ways to escape an enemy. You have that, and then you have the knockback. So what you can do is if the knockback's on cooldown and someone's up in your face because you want to get range with a ranger, you stealth, get to range in those 3 seconds, and you can then resume, and also you'll be attacking from a different direction as well. So you can stealth, switch over to, for example, short bow, get behind them and stack some extra bleeds on them, especially if they've already got vulnerability. You can, start doing that sort of thing. Or get behind them, throw and switch to axe and maybe do some stuff, chill them, and escape and those sorts of things. So it gives the ranger a little bit more utility on longbow options. It gives them a lot of options with longbow, and it makes longbow a much more interesting weapon for a
instead
ranger.
of just pew 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 pew.
Right, and that's really all it was. Is it was just a straight damage type one. Now it's more of a tactical weapon, which I think is fantastic. I'm quite excited to be playing with my ranger. I think that they're doing some cool things with the ranger, and I think what's interesting is they did a massive patch for a necro, but the ranger's just constantly getting these little tweaks to make them more interesting. And I'm liking where they're taking them. Still annoyed by the fact that you have to have a pet out all the time, but I'm kind of hoping that what they'll do is they'll release like a marksman elite class, prestige class, which basically gets rid of the mesmer and or the pet, and you just shoot stuff.
Or
Hey, Tillian.
they can give thieves rifles.
Yes. Someday they will give thieves rifles, and it will be
This change is
amazing.
approved by Spirit.
Indeed. And hopefully, well, I'm looking forward to the whole all weapons to everyone. I think that'll be fascinating to see what they do there, because that's essentially creating a whole bunch of new classes within each profession. But we've discussed that at length before, so we'll keep moving. Warriors have had some interesting healing skill balancing. They're trying to bring, it looks like, warriors more, make warriors actually more survivable in PvP, just because it's really hard to get a warrior into position in PvP, from what I hear. And once they do, they're a wrecking ball, but it's just difficult to get them
getting there. That's, yeah.
So they're doing some interesting balancing to warriors' healing skills. I don't think they want to put warriors too high, too fast. It's interesting that they were willing to put necros super high, super fast, but all of these other classes, their professions,
just because they were so low to begin with.
Really? Were they really in that bad of a shape? Interesting. Well, necros are amazing right now, and I'm having a lot of fun with mine. So, moving on then, warriors got their healing skill balance, which will be interesting to see how that affects things. Engineers, Ellies, and Guardians, for the most part, it looked like maintenance. Did you guys see anything interesting in the show, in the patch?
It just seemed like general tweaking.
Yeah.
Nothing really stuck out. The biggest thing that stuck out to me was the warrior healing skill balance, because that makes the passive of healing signet better than the active of the other two skills.
Really?
Really?
Healing per second wise, yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
I'm not sure mess with that. I just
so regen warriors are back.
I keep looking at where it's so hard to play a thief right now when I have a maxed out warrior and going, oh my god, this is just keeps getting
the thing is
better.
What I think would happen is you should stop playing your thief. Most thieves should just stop playing their thieves right now. Not because it's a bad thing, but because ArenaNet will look at metrics and they will see who's playing what. And they will say, and thieves, I think, for the most part, are diehard, which is a good thing, because, you know, you guys are pushing the limit of your play style with playing thief. It's the most difficult class to play well. And I think that's one reason why people keep playing the thief. The only problem is if they all stop playing thieves, ArenaNet would say, wow, no one's playing thieves right now. Why is that? We should probably start buffing them. Which, Evee, you actually mentioned something interesting about stealth in PvP. What happens when you're playing a thief in PvP? What do people talk to you, don't they?
If a match goes by and someone does not get mad at me and send me personal tells, I'm having a good day.
Which is weird, because thieves, aren't they supposed, like, at top end PvP, they're somewhat useful, but there's other classes that do what they do, professions that do what they do better, aren't there? So why are people getting angry at you as a thief?
It's just the archetype.
Yeah.
I mean, the rogue archetype has a lot of stigma attached to it, and people just don't like it, because inherently, coming from other games, it's just there.
Interesting. And stealth frustrates people, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah,
well,
people think it's an
like
easy
moving
mode.
around.
Don't they realize that if someone drops, like, the little, like, stealth bubble, and the little walls are still up around it, that means the thief is still inside, which means drop every AoE you have on the thing.
Shh, don't tell them.
That's what I do. I'm just like, wait, the walls are still up? Unless they hit another stealth skill, they're still in there. Well, I'm going to drop every single...
skill, the moment they walk out of that shadow refuge, if it's still actually up, they'll drop stealth.
And that is why when that happens, I drop every single mark I have into it, and then giggle.
Terrible, terrible person.
And then I run into it, go into Death Shroud, and do my AoE Death Shroud skills, and pray that it hits them.
And you're
Which is why I only
there
use...
crying and smashing the keyboard.
Which is why I only use Shadow Refuge when there's a, like, avenue where I can escape that they won't, like, think of.
Yeah.
Like,
I will say I don't normally...
Skyhammer as an example. I'll use Shadow Refuge over one of those areas where I can drop down into a level below it, and they'll think, oh, the thief is still in there, but no, I dropped down and I'm, like, coming back around and I'm going to backstab in a second.
You know, what's also possible is that they use Shortbow 5 to port out, and so they can Shortbow 5 from stealth, and I won't see them get away.
It's only a 900 range. It's really hard to, like, especially with the teleports, it's kind of hard to get away.
Yeah.
You can get enough distance, but it's to make a completely clean escape, you can't just disappear with a
I
teleport.
will say I don't chase them when a thief's running from me because I'm normally like trying to bunker on a point in PvP, and so usually the thief will stealth on the point, and I will drop everything I have, and if they are escaping, I'm fine with it. That means they're not hitting me, and that's more time that I control the point. And so I don't particularly care, as long as they're not trying to neutralize the point. But yes, I think it's fun to drop every AoE ever onto a Shadow Refuge. They've also changed an interesting thing with Mesmers. They gave a Mesmer mantra the ability to stun someone for 3 seconds. Has that changed the game?
It already had a stun on it. It just made it a little bit longer.
How long was the previous
I thought it
stun?
was a signet, no?
No, it's a mantra, which means you can hit it 3 times in rapid succession.
Well, 2, 3 if it's traded, and it's a significant amount that you have to invest to use it 3 times. I believe it's 30 points.
Yeah, it's 30 points to use 3 times.
But a mantra, but that's huge for a mantra Mesmer, which, while that may not be top tier Mesmer play style, it is something that I know a few Mesmers
I wouldn't
use.
even consider it mid tier.
Really?
If you're not some kind of variant on Shatter or Phantasm Mesmer, you're pretty much not PvPing.
Well, not PvP, but in PvE, the mantra medics are bigger.
So,
and it gives them more interrupt. But again, interrupt in PvE isn't
right as important.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So here's the question that I have then. That's actually really interesting
in
because
world that's probably much stronger.
So a 3-second stun is not as critical as it would seem.
Nah.
In PvE, no. In PvP, it could be strong. It's just like everything else in the build is just not up to snuff.
Okay.
So it's just like you'd sacrifice a lot to be able to get that 3-second stun.
Okay, interesting. So it's something that could be useful. What about with the interrupt builds? Do you think that will affect interrupt builds?
Most interrupt builds are focused around the weapons that they use, and their utilities are usually matchup distraction. The Signet of Domination, I think, is the one with the stun. And then, oh my god, what's the third one? They swap between Portal and something else. Because Portal is so powerful in PvP.
Yeah, probably Blink, because there's a stun break.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So it's not as cool as I thought. I was like, wow, that seems OP. But it's not. Good to know.
It's nice because in a team fight, if you're really good with something like that and you happen to have that mantra build, you can be like, alright, at a certain point, people tend to use their heal skills as soon as they can get the full effect of them. That way, as soon as it's off cooldown, I can use it again.
Right, and you always get that blue aura.
If you get a really good interrupt in, you can essentially kill someone with an interrupt. A really good interrupt Mesmer will be able to pop out those 3 interrupts on 3 different people in a team fight.
Wow. Interesting. What about you guys in chat? Do any of you guys use the mantra at all? Curious to know. Moving on with my not quite 15-minute patch note analysis. They added tickets to the Black Lion chests. Vrabin actually just bought, I think, $35 worth of keys. He got about 30 keys or something. And he got 7 tickets. And from what I'm seeing on Reddit, he's actually really lucky. And by 7 tickets, I mean 7 ticket scraps and no tickets.
Oh.
Yeah. So I like the ticket scrap concept. I just don't like...
It's just not common enough. The average price for one of those skins is coming up to be about $50.
So if you're going to buy gold and then buy it off the AH, it's going to be $50. So that's what?
No,
like,
not off the AH. If you're like buying the chests.
Ah, okay. So what are they selling for on the auction house?
I have no idea.
Spirit's got it. She's
I don't
in game
know.
right now. Oh, okay. No?
No, I don't know. Aren't they account bound, or are they available on the auction house?
You can trade them. I'm checking Spidey right now.
But the thing about the weapons is they're going to reduce Black Lion keys, but or if Evan Nashblade wins,
So it's
but
actually
before that happens, the price of those weapons will raise to 5 tickets instead of 1 or whatever it is at the moment.
So the interesting thing is, instead of buying so right now it's about 50 cents for 1 gold in Guild Wars 2. And the skins are going for between 40 and 50 gold on the auction house, which means if you're going to buy keys, don't buy keys, just buy gems, convert it to gold, and buy it straight off the AH if you want to do it that way. And it's going to cost you between $25 and $35, it looks like, to do it that way.
That's so expensive.
Yeah. So that's how much the skins are going for the price conversion. So that said, it's better than the $200 I would have had to spend had I wanted to get an unlimited hair change kit, which I wanted one so much. Someday I hope those come back, because I would buy those.
$35 is more than half of what I paid to get the game, and I bought it pre-order.
So the interesting thing is, and it's more than a full armor set.
Yeah.
Either. Yeah, it's pretty expensive. Gotta say, I like the Winchester pistol type thing, that revolver that they've got. I think it looks fantastic, but yeah. I'm not going to pay $35 for it, unfortunately. Especially since it's a one-time use. Now, if I could put it on all of my characters, that would get a bit more tempting.
I'd be tempted, but still $35, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
So there you go. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. I think we're going to be seeing gold stay at around 50 cents per gold. It's been that way for months now. So I think it's going to stay that way. So if you're looking at something on the auction house and you want to buy it with real money, divide its value by half, and that's how much money, real money, US dollars, you're going to have to pay to get it. I'm not quite sure what the conversion is in EU. I've only been looking at the US one. But they're the same market, aren't they? Like the trading post is the same for everyone? Okay.
Yep.
So it's going to be about the same. I'm not sure what they convert.
Just convert it to US and then convert US to EU. There you go.
So, Dragon Season says they're different. I assumed the trading post market, I thought that was global, but apparently it's not.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
So what we need to do is see if we can mail to our EU friends and then create price differences.
Well, you can definitely mail to European accounts, but you have to use the account name, not just a character name. Because I did it when we did the Wickerwind Festival. I mailed myself some gold.
Oh, it's not the trading post that's different. It's the gem prices are different because their 800 gems is 10 euros, which is not $10.
Oh, holy smokes. That's more, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's 1 gold for 28 gems in EU at the moment.
So it's like 35 euros. Between 25 and 35 euros for an EU person. That's rough. Oh, and they are using different trading post markets. Can we mail between characters, EU and...
If you have the account name of the account, you can send mail to them.
So essentially what we should be doing is seeing if there's actual differences there, and I need to start being on both of my accounts and basically do trading, because that was a huge thing to do to make money in World of Warcraft, was trade between the Alliance and the Horde on your own server and try and make money that way.
Hey, EU buddies, if you need some cheap stuff off the TP, just let us Americans know.
Holy smokes.
We got your back.
So it's almost, it's almost $10 more to buy a weapon skin in Europe, according to our good friend from Denmark, I think? Whose name I still can't pronounce, even though it's awesome. Let's go ahead and continue moving on. There's some interesting stuff with the gem store as well, in that you can buy something to double your support tokens for 30 minutes. Have either of you seen that, used that? I'm not sure why I would want that.
They're really cool. The banners themselves are really cool. And if it was a permanent edition, you get a banner that you can throw down to support your candidate to commemorate the election forever. I would actually consider buying one because they look really nice.
Do the banners give you any bonuses?
I don't think so.
Okay. Really?
I'm not sure.
But they're limited use, aren't they? You get 5 of them.
5 of them. but I don't think
Netherlands.
they give any bonuses. I don't know. They look really cool. I would
Yeah.
use one.
They look cool, but I would not buy them, unfortunately. Well, unless they were unlimited use, then I'd be like, yeah, keep this around. Then we could have
If
people
they get
arguing
good
about it.
buffs, I mean, I consider it, maybe, but like,
Yeah. Oh, they do give buffs according to Dragon Season. So
Yeah,
it's
but what kind
probably
of
like a
buffs?
guild buff. It's probably like the all guild buff, I would suspect, or possibly like the fiery brazier that you could put down, I would suspect. So that's actually not half bad then. Okay. I can accept that. That there's some single use. I'd prefer having a completely RP thing that doesn't give any buffs, in all honesty.
I would want it like like the kite, where I can just pull it out and hold it whenever I want, and then 10 years down the line, I can be like, I voted for Evan Dashblade. He didn't get elected, but I wanted an Abaddon Fractal. We don't have one, and it's your fault.
And the person's like, I started with the factions add-on.
I'm just letting people know that if Evan gets elected, I'm going to disown everyone that voted for him.
We're actually going to film him table flipping.
Wait, what? Wait, you're a Keel person?
He's weird, I know.
Oh.
It's okay.
Just gonna go hide under my desk now.
It's
Goodbye.
okay. I'm actually torn between the two candidates. Just because I kind of want Keel. Evee you brought up a good point for what they could do story-wise and why it would be interesting if Keel won. What was that again?
Because so far, Keel's been having this meteoric rise, so to speak. But here's the thing. If she does win, she's going to be working with a bunch of pirates, a bunch of cutthroats, people that she generally won't like. That woman ain't going to get anything done, and that's going to be funny as crap.
Basically, we're going to if Keel wins, we will very likely be able to watch the rise and fall of Ellen Keel, and I think it will be fascinating because she's not a politician; she's just a soldier. I mean, she's gonna get torn to shreds by them.
It can go one of two ways. Either one, she's not going to get anything done because all these pirates are going to be going against her the entire way, or we see Lion's Arch become a military force to be reckoned with and completely separate itself from Kryda.
Which would be
I don't know if she. But
like-
how many counselors are there now? 9?
8,
8?
because
I
one
don't know.
died, and so one
I-
replaced.
I'm indifferent right now on the election. I would prefer an Abaddon Fractal, but if Keel wins, I'm not going to be heartbroken. Unless the Thermonova reactor is something completely stupid, like a ripping fabric of reality, and then we fight a giant angry teapot.
So
or
I was
something.
talking to
Then I would be
Evie.
furious.
What if we fight our doppelgangers, except it's not our doppelgangers? It's us from an alternate reality, and we have to kill ourselves.
I would be so sad.
I think that'd be
Why would you
fascinating.
do
Like
that?
it's
No, I
evil
can't-
version. Like they show up and they've got little goatees and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
unless
if they have
unless
the
you already have a goatee, then they just have the mustache.
then they don't have a goatee. They just just a little. And even the Char have like these weird goatees, and you're like, how did you?
I'd be
get
entirely okay with that if we fight, like, it opens the darkest timeline and we fight our evil doppelgangers.
that? I'm thinking that that's actually what happened when you ascended in Guild Wars 1.
We saw the darkest timeline.
Yeah, remember when you ascended and you had to fight yourself?
Yeah, but it was just a dark model of myself.
Was it?
Maybe? I don't know. It didn't have a goatee.
Bum bum bum.
What if there was an illusion over them, so that it was you versus you from an alternate reality who is also trying to save the world from the Mersat and the White Mantle, and they failed because you killed them.
I choose
so
not
there's
to
a
believe
reality-
that because it would break my heart.
So they create... Well, we already did horrible things like releasing Pawala Joko, so, I mean, it's not the first terrible thing. But, oh, and here's the crazy thing is, the darkest timeline is because we won that fight in Ascending. That was the breaking point for that reality. And so now we have to go fight our doppelgangers again, who are the evil people who grew up in the horrible timeline.
Bum, bum, bum.
I like that idea.
Totally did not see what I did.
I actually
I
saw you
saw
put
it.
the little eye patch on. That was pretty fantastic. Oh. That's why we're here. We're here to mess with you, Tillian. Moving on. So, there is a new website for builds, apparently. I need to stop yelling at my microphone.
It's not a new website, but it's my candidate for
Yes.
the one that will become the universal site.
I have used it. I like it. I agree. Where is it?
It's called intothemists.com, and it started out as a PvP-centric website, but recently they've added detailed guides and searches for builds, which makes it superior to the other websites at the moment. So,
cool. So there we go. Intothemist.com. So definitely check that one out. Evee, have you used Into the Mist at all?
I use it all the time.
Oh, well, there we go. So, what do you think of their builds?
I haven't used it to browse builds. I've used it to create them, and as far as just that goes, it's probably the best tool because you can crunch numbers and just be theory craft. Oh my god!
Nice.
It allows for the inclusion. You can customize a jewelry you have. You can include food buffs. You can overwrite the numbers it has and enter your own if that's your thing. It's nice.
Cool. Well, fantastic. I'll definitely be spending more time there. I'm glad that we have that resource. As much as I like messing with my own builds and figuring them out, I will say when I'm playing a class I'm not familiar with, I tend to prefer to get a base build and then tweak from there. I got really used to that when they added heroes to Guild Wars 1.
Yep.
Because I'd basically be like, what is this class? I don't even know. I've played Necromancer for the past 3 years. I'm just gonna grab a generic warrior build.
What's really funny is that after Heroes came out, that's the point where I was just I really need to learn about everything else because I had a tendency to not know about build sites and whatnot because I was just one of those people who's if I can't see it in the game, I'm not gonna care. So I created a lot of hero builds, and a lot of them didn't work.
Yeah.
But my crowning achievement is making builds to solo dungeons on my own. Where all I have to do is
character? Solo character, or your heroes were so good?
Builds, where all I had to do was just stand there, my heroes would take care of everything else.
Nice.
So I'd watch movies.
So you just walk forward, they'd do the fight, you'd walk forward again.
I wouldn't even walk forward half the time, I just flag them. And if they died, I would res them.
There was a point where you could, Glint's challenge?
Yes.
If you put Mesmers and stuff at certain points around it, you could let your heroes do it and AFK farm Glint's challenge.
I did that. It was fantastic. It was really
I didn't actually
easy.
do it, but I saw it. Chaz did it.
It was really
I saw him
cool.
do it.
I enjoyed it thoroughly.
And have a camera tool so you could zoom out, so you could see everything and flag everyone exactly how you needed to without having to move around.
Oh, really? Is that... Oh, that's
how
I should have done it. I just prepped and then I started the thing. I ran around putting everyone where they needed to go.
I literally loaded in and did not move.
That's both hilarious and sad. But there you go. So you could AFK farm Guild Wars 1. There you go, guys. So if you need to do that to make some money to buy your 50 trait, your 50 of 50 hollow monuments, there you go. Moving on, skill/trait choices. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about some builds that you can do and basically general philosophy of builds. So, Spirit, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how people should be going about picking traits and skills?
Well, if you're not familiar with the class, look up a build and tweak from there. But one thing that... Go ahead.
If you're not familiar with the class and you haven't played it for more than, I'd say, a day, I'd say play with it for a day first. Then go look at a build. Because if not, you're just going to be lost.
Yeah.
And
know how
use all
stuff
the
works.
weapons.
I guess that's the thing. Yeah, know how, try stuff out and know how it works. And for me, something I've noticed a lot lately is I'll play with people who get very set into, 3 skills. These are my utilities. Know what your class does. There's nothing more valuable in a dungeon than being able to say, Instead, like I'll switch out a utility. That can change a whole fight right there. Especially things like if you're a guardian, if you're not using reflectile projection, I always
Projectile
say it backwards.
reflection?
I always say it backwards. It's become a thing.
Reflectile. Reflectile skill. There you go.
Projectile reflection. If you're not using that on a guardian, you
Where it's needed.
I'm not going to say you're playing guardian wrong, but you should know when to use that because it'll entirely change a fight around for you. It can reflect the arrows in the lava shaman fractal and put agony on the boss. It can protect you in that fractal from all the lava elementals on the ground. It can entirely change that fight, that one or two skills. And yeah, projectile reflection is a big one, but there's other stuff too. Your stun breaks,
Pools.
stability skills, stealths. If you can use those, you should know what they are and have them available to you. Don't be afraid to switch out your utilities or your weapons. Change up and be adaptable to your situation always.
Exactly.
A good example of that is I play Necromancer, and I'm 99.9% of the time I'll be playing Scepter, Dagger, and Staff as my 2 weapon sets. And they're fantastic weapon sets, but I was fighting the Aetherblade boss, and I just was not getting I wasn't keeping my health up high enough. And so what I did is I dropped Staff, and I got a Dagger Focus, which added some slows and a little bit more crowd control and some boon stripping, which wasn't huge. But the real thing is the number 2 dagger was massively important for me in that fight because it was basically a 1,000 to 2,000 health heal if I could get it off properly. And that was just enough to keep my health. I kept my health topped off at between 50 to 75% the entire fight. And it was great for if I messed up during the dodge phase. When she showed up the next time, I just life siphoned some health off of her and make up for my messed up dodging of the fire. And so being able to change your skills, your weapons, that sort of thing, I think is massively important. And shifting traits around in knowing what all of the traits in your tree do, because sometimes you'll want, like, on my Necro, I will switch between corruption skills, well skills, and not well skills very often, but corruption skills and spectral skills quite often on my Necro. And there's a trait that I have that gives me either 20% cooldown in corruption skills, damage while fear, and a few other things. And so I can switch between that. Usually right now it's on the terror where I cause damage while something's feared. But knowing what traits you have available to you at any one time is massively important because it can radically change how you approach a situation.
Yeah, like just Necro for instance. If you're going to be going up against a boss that you can't fear, there's no point in having terror.
Right.
Because it's not going to do damage.
You can apply fear, but it doesn't move, right?
If they have defiance up, it just right. Okay. If they have defiance up, fear hits them and then disappears. It doesn't actually do anything. Like you'll get the little icon for fear, but it won't actually be on them long. It won't actually apply.
Okay.
It's really
I just wanted to make
annoying.
sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like little things like that you might not necessarily notice.
Yeah.
Continue.
But yes, that would be fantastic if it just sat there and like ticked off defiance for like a tick a second. That'd be fantastic. But no, fear just disappears instantly. So, but and yeah, there's go ahead.
I was gonna say, going further from that, gear plays a very large part in your build, obviously, because that's where all your stats come from. Obviously, Berserker is really, really popular, mostly because damage tends to be the end-all of PvE. But there are situations, like the Aetherblade Fractal, just as an example, where being a Berserker is really, really just not going to work.
Depending on which class you're playing.
But perfect profession for it.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, we don't all play warriors.
Or Mesmers.
Well, even as a Mesmer, that Aetherblade Fractal, they don't have the healing to go through that.
Oh, that's true. If someone lightnings you in the face, that's a good point. If a striker focuses on you, you're going down. Unless you have some other stats.
Exactly. So, I mean, mixing and matching knights and berserkers is really a good way to increase your survivability without sacrificing too much damage because you still have some berserker like crit damage, and you still have the precision from knights and the power, but you have that little bit of toughness that'll make each hit just that little bit weaker so that you can survive. And then of course there's the situations where berserker is the best way to go, like if you're farming COF.
Yes, you're just straight berserker and murder.
Just plow through everything.
It's true. And I think it's also interesting knowing your class is important too. Like, for example, most Necros don't build Zerker stats. They either build Rampagers or they go for Rabid because they're conditioned.
Unless you're me and you're strange.
Yeah, I built Berserker on my Necro too, but I have an Axe power build. I'm in one of those situations where I do want a lot of power, and I'm also putting Rabid Jewelry on her instead of going full Berserker for everything.
Yeah. That's interesting. See, I'm not a huge fan of power builds at all.
I just wanted to try something different. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that it's interesting, and it's good that you're trying stuff different, and hopefully that'll become more functional. Once they give Necros a greatsword, then power builds will come into their own, I think. And once minions actually scale with stats, with all stats, that's when stuff will be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on with stats, gear choices. Now, how do you guys feel about foods in the game right now?
I don't use consumables because I don't use consumables.
Yeah, they're a nice boost, but I generally don't use them for everyday play. I will I'll have magic find ones on me, and if we're running dungeons, I'll usually pop an Omnumberry bar, which probably won't happen anymore, honestly, since champions aren't going to drop money after a certain rework. So I might use a magic find one, I might not. I don't know what I'll really use. I'll use the potions if they drop for me in dungeons, but I don't carry them to use. They don't make a big enough difference that I feel like I have to have them all the time. Plus, they're really annoying to click and monitor and pay attention to when they're on or off.
Yeah, I don't really use it. I don't think we're at a point yet. Now, I'm gonna move into another discussion then, but one of the places where consumables becomes very important is when you're doing very difficult group-based content similar to raiding in WoW. In fact, in World of Warcraft, the only time when everyone has to have all of their cons on is when you're raiding the latest content. That's when they say make sure you've got your flasks, your food, your beast feast is down, you've got, all the buffs ever out.
But WoW's made that incredibly convenient to do now with the cauldrons and feasts and whatnot. It's basically falls down to one person for an entire raid now.
Now, well, except you have to have your flasks too, so everyone has to go and buy their alchemy flasks. Oh, that's right. Someone drops the alchemist drops the cauldron, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Man, that's boring, actually. Interestingly enough, though, Guild Wars 2 has something very similar. With their foods. They have feasts that you can drop down, which is quite convenient.
Food trays.
Food trays. Like, for example, I can drop down a tray of rare veggie pizza that I make. It takes 10 rare veggie pizzas. It gives everyone condition damage and condition duration. It's fantastic if that's what you want. The only problem is I never am in a situation where it's useful. I've never, if I was maybe at a world boss, I could drop it down and everyone could grab it, but why would I spend 50 silver in front of a world boss? In raids, I can understand that. Now, Spirit, I know you've had some issues with the recent posts and everything that Colin Johansson has talked about, where...
Yeah.
With that, actually. Go ahead and feel free to vent.
So I wasn't on
Spirit Rage
last week or whenever you guys talked about this. So if I'm overlapping, stop me. But one of my big issues with the blog post, I had a couple of them. did not specifically talk about the future of organized group content, which really worries me. They had stuff laid out for PvE, like open world PvE. They had stuff laid out for PvP and World v World. They didn't talk about their answer to raids. Does that mean they're not ready to talk about it? Does that mean it's not coming in the next 6 months? I don't know. What I do know is I'm not happy with the state of organized group content in the game. The 5-man dungeons, or at least the way they're designed, are not cutting it for me. I don't want to be that person, like, I feel like I'm that person who's like, we need raids and Guild Wars too, but I didn't play other stuff. I can't call for raids because I've never had them before, but group content needs...
But you did play Guild Wars 1, and it did exist there.
I guess,
and it was pretty fantastic, actually, in my opinion.
Amazing.
The elite areas.
The elite areas were amazing. Tillian just winked at us in chat, and he said it is coming.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming. I know they've talked about it, but it worries me that it wasn't specifically mentioned. You would think if they had it or it was coming soon, they would be promoting it.
So we might be looking at the end of, like, next year, Q1, Q2 of 2014.
Which is making me unhappy.
Because you want it now.
I
want it now.
It's not so much want it now as much as we want to know what's coming. They're not being transparent about it.
Well, is that necessarily a bad thing in this case? Because they're being pretty transparent with a lot of things, I think.
They're being transparent with some things, but they're always surface details.
I'd also like to say that Tillian is speculating. Okay, he doesn't have inside knowledge. Pfft, he said it's probably coming in 2013. I was like, Tillian, you're like our ArenaNet. No, apparently you're not our ArenaNet source. Dang it. We need one of those. Anyways. So, please continue, Evie. I was getting all excited from reading chat.
I lost my track of what I was saying.
So they had pretty amazing zones in... The elite areas were pretty amazing in Guild Wars 1. They had a lot of different things that... A lot of complex things that you could actually do, and they were non-linear. Do you think that if they did introduce it, it would tie into the new crafting system that Evie hates, Kate? That I love?
Yeah, I would speculate that it would be balanced around Ascended Gear, yes.
Yeah.
And high-end... As high as your stats can go.
So basically it would be balanced around full con sets. Now, what sorts of cons are there? There is food buffs. There's 2 more, isn't there? There's food buffs,
maintenance oils. Attunement crystals.
Attunement crystals. There's 4? Because I think there's also potions.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, do attunement crystals do something different? I thought they're the same as potions.
Tuning crystals, potions, foods, and maintenance oil.
The crystals are like maintenance oils. They take up the same slot.
Okay. So maintenance oils are an interesting thing.
Oh, and then there's sharpening stones.
Sharpening stones share the slot with maintenance oils, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing, is that you essentially have... so you have a buff you apply to your weapons, you have a buff that you drink, and then a buff that you eat. So you've got food buffs, liquid buffs, and weapon buffs. Or maybe the potions you just slosh on your armor. Pour it on your head. It's like anointing oil. You just... There you go. No, I don't think that you're actually doing that, because it looks like you're drinking when you get a pop.
That explains why in like football games and whatnot they pour Gatorade over players.
Because it actually buffs them. It's a buff technique, which is odd that they're doing it at the end of the game, but you know, they haven't quite worked out how potions work yet.
It's the Victory Glow buff where you get plus 50% gold find and magic find.
There you go. So... The maintenance oils and everything. So you think they balance it around maintenance oils? Do a lot of people, do you think, know about the maintenance oils crystals? Because I was actually kind of surprised when I discovered them. I'm like, oh wow, these are separate from weapons or potions and food.
I think they're not necessarily used as much as they could be, but I also think they're not strong enough that you're really missing out if you don't use them.
Here's the thing. They're cheap for a reason.
Well, except for the fact that you can get like 6% precision from a maintenance oil. For like 7 silver.
Not 6%
What is it?
precision. It's 6% of something else, isn't it?
Yeah,
No,
like
but
6% of your power gets added to your precision, but that only boils down to like 60 maybe if you're
except there's
maxed out in
another
power.
one. There's a maintenance oil that gives you 6% of your toughness plus 4% of your vitality as precision. That can translate if you're a high vitality toughness class, like a necro or a guardian or a warrior, into 6% precision.
Oh, you mean like an additional 6%?
Like an additional 6% precision. Basically, enough stat numbers to give you 6%
Well, it doesn't.
precision.
It doesn't increase. There's a difference though. It doesn't increase your. Oh yeah, you just clarified that.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So, like,
here's the thing: people that focus into health and toughness aren't going to be DPS classes anyway, or DPS.
But
builds
here's the
anyways.
thing: what
it's
it
a
does,
nice buffer, but it's not going to change your build.
The interesting thing is actually with my 100% uptime precision build before they buffed my my random stat on my ranger, my precision aura on my ranger, it was enough to get me from I think 77% to 81%. So it was a 4% buff, and that was on a Rampager's ranger.
And that was from what stat to what stat? Power to precision?
No, that was from toughness, vitality to precision.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I can't imagine that working.
It did. It was enough. I thought it was weird, but it was. It was like 4%. I was like, how did I even do... Okay. It worked out.
Hey, if it works.
If it works. I don't need it anymore because of my buff of the doubling of that precision aura, which is fantastic. But, yeah, I thought it was really interesting. It gave me about almost like 100 precision. And that was on a Rampager's build.
I don't know, with consumables and whatnot, and even Ascended gear, if that's what they scale organized group content for, it's just going to be more gating to start that group content, and I feel that goes against their basis of philosophy of having to prepare to actually have fun.
Here's an interesting thing.
No. See, the thing is, it's not... It wouldn't necessarily have to be gated like fractals in terms of, like, you wouldn't have to have Ascended gear to be able to do it. But it's like the... You know, dungeons out in the world, they're balanced around exotic gear, but you don't need exotic gear to do them. I mean, the first time we went through a raw explorable, I mean, don't tell anyone this, but I was a thief wearing blues. I lived mostly, but you know, we made it.
I might have done a raw the first time in white gear because, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
guys,
so
I'm
you can do
judging
it
you
with
right
lower
now,
tier
by
gear.
the way. I am judging you just straight
It
up.
was like
Judgment
a month
from
after
Shongoku.
launch. I didn't
Oh.
have any money.
Think of it this way. If everyone in your group was in green, or not even green, blues, like you were, do you want us to think you would have finished a raw?
If we had skillful players, yes.
Okay.
And we did. It was
with you because sure, some paths I would say yes, but there is a DPS check that exists in a raw, and it's that Duena thing, whatever it's called.
That's
The
fair,
Simon
but that's
fight?
an isolated boss, and we've seen their improvements on dungeons. We know they're learning.
But
Here's the
we
thing,
don't
though.
know if they're not going to do something else like that.
Well, is that necessarily a bad thing, though? Okay, so imagine if...
DPS check boss, yes.
You think that's a bad thing to have a DPS check boss?
Yeah. If
Because
there's a
that
boss
means
that you
you get
literally
there.
cannot beat, but by obtaining as much DPS as possible and beating it down, not only is it going to be an unfun fight because you have to invest everything you have into DPS, but it's just not well designed.
Okay, I can see that. Now, here's the thing, though. What if they create a massive zone where you can go and you can kill bosses and that sort of thing? And there are DPS check bosses, but it's a massive zone. And so you could say, well, we're going to go do the DPS boss today, guys. Bring your highest damage character. Or, hey, guild, we're going to go and fight this boss. Bring whoever you want. And maybe have it so where instead of being gated from the content itself, you can go and do any of the content with, you know, maybe exotics or basic gear. But certain content requires certain comps.
Then everything from that zone needs to be account bound.
I'm fine with that.
I doubt that would happen though.
What if instead of
that?
dropping weapons? I mean, why do you think so? Why do you think that would not happen, Evie?
I mean, just look at them in the past.
Have you ever gotten a non-account bound thing in...
The fractal weapons are account bound.
Fractal weapons are account bound.
Oh.
Fractal crafting mats are account bound.
And any tokens you get are account bound.
And since this would be more similar to a large-scale dungeon zone...
Like the progress of fractals.
Oh, you mean like the progress in the zone itself, like the content?
Mm-hmm.
Then yes, it would have to be account bound, and fractals should be account bound, and it's still not, and I'm still upset about that.
Really? So you think progress through that zone should be account bound?
Absolutely. Especially if you have to bring different characters. You don't want to get through one boss, and then the DPS check is like the third boss, and you have to go back with your DPS character and go through the first two to fight the third one.
In World of Warcraft, you could bind it to character, but it was also bound to the raid group, and you could then bring other characters into the raid group to switch. But then if you wanted to, and you didn't need that other character, you could still rerun it. What if they added a lockout system to it? Or do you think it should be like a 4-hour zone where you just go in and like classic
I would like to see what they did with Domain of Anguish and Guild Wars, which is there's 4 dungeons and then Malix, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the 4 consecutive areas, you could either do multiple areas in a row, any number of them. When you finished multiple ones in a row, you got increased rewards from the chests. If you wanted to, though, you could stop at any time and do only one zone at a time. I would rather see that.
That would
By
actually
themselves,
work.
they were only maybe, I don't know, half an hour tops, 20 minutes. And once we got used, like when Domain of Anguish came out, I believe it was 5 hours for a full run. But I believe the whole thing can be done in about an hour and a half now, reasonably, with a balanced team comp.
I need to bring you guys in Hamstorm when I decide to finish Guild Wars and get my 50 of 50. Moving on to actually the end of the show. We're going to talk, like I said, more in depth about content, living world, and that sort of thing next week. At which point Dragon Season has actually given me something to read about for a general philosophy thing. Oh, that's actually really interesting. But I'll read about that next week. You guys will have to come back and read that. There is interesting talk because they have said that they are going to add stat swapping onto gear. And by gear, I mean specifically legendary equipment. And they have stated that they are going to be adding new types of legendary items, which is not weapons, probably. It's probably armor or possibly trinkets, because they like trolling us by saying new gear type, but not new gear skins. And since legendary equipment will have stat swapping, even I've been talking about how they could add stat swapping onto your armor sets, and basically tying that in. I was talking to Christian about it as well, and we were discussing whether or not T-stones, transmutation stones, should be used for that, and we came up with a few ways that they could do it. The first way, which I'm not as much of a fan of it as the second way, but it is interesting, is that you could take a transmutation stone, a piece of armor, and insignia for the new stats that you want, throw all of those into a Mystic Forge with something else, maybe. I don't know what else it would be. Maybe like a Philosopher's Stone. And it would add that stat to that piece of armor. And every time you put that piece of armor in with a new insignia, it would add that stat that you could then drop down and select. And it would give fine transmutation stones more of a use in the game beyond simply cosmetic, which is nice. But I think a lot of people now will use cheese stones for that. But it would also give more people a reason to go to the store to buy convenience of skill swapping. Evee, you had actually a fairly different idea that still included transmutation stones. Why don't you go ahead and run that down for the viewers?
Okay, so instead of having this mumbo-jumbo convoluted mess that is the Mystic Forge, instead introduce a completely new set of items. Seals, writs, and, oh man, stamps.
Stamps.
Mm-hmm.
That was my idea. Okay, I came up with the word stamps. Anyways,
so these 3 items will be tied to light, medium, and heavy armor. And they will be also tied to specific stat sets, like Rampagers, Berserkers, Rabid, Soldier, Knights, etc., etc. So the way it will work is when you get one of these seals, just as an example, you could take a T-stone and apply it to a piece of medium armor.
So you
and
know
it
how
would
when you
give
open
you
up,
the step.
you know how when, like when you open up the T-stones, right? Like how would that work interface wise?
You just open up the T-stones, and you'll put in the armor, and then you'll put in the seal, and it'll just add that stat set to the existing armor.
I like that. And then what you could do is then you'd get a drop-down menu for the actual stats, and then you can switch between the two different stats, however you like.
The point is how you acquire these seals and writs and stamps. Make them not only drop anywhere that exotics can drop, but also have them available for dungeon tokens and be able to be crafted. The cost from dungeon tokens would be about 250, so it's more than, say, gloves, but it's cheaper than chess pieces.
And pants. So it puts it sort of in the middle of the price range.
Exactly.
And so you would be able to do that. Maybe another type would be used for weapons. But that sort of thing. And I think that actually, I really like that idea. Spirit, what do you think of that?
I think it introduces another unnecessary system into the game that wouldn't necessarily be that great. I would rather see the use of the Mystic Forge and not necessarily having a crazy convoluted recipe for it, but it's a little bit of a sink for crafting mats. It's a recipe that's reliable. You'll get it every time, and it does get. You don't have to have a crafting thing maxed out or anything. And it doesn't require more dev time to introduce all these new items.
Ideally,
just be straight up.
I think the same thing. Ideally, I want to be able to go up to some NPC and be like, okay, here's a small fee, change my stats.
See, the thing is, I like having... It's not going to... Adding additional recipes to the crafting system is actually not that complex. They would need an icon artist for the icon, and they would need to tweak how transmutation stones work a little bit. But since they're already adding stat swapping into the game, they've already got the backbone.
There's 3 new types of items they'd be adding between the stamps, the seals, and whatever else you said. Those are 3. They'd have to add the stats for, like like the weapons, the armor, and whatever. And armor pieces all have different types. I don't know. It just seems unnecessarily complicated to me. In a game where they're already talking about how we have all these crazy reward systems already, and we need to kind of tone it down because there are so many currencies and so many different things going on, I wouldn't want to see an additional one. I would rather see use of familiar items. Like you mentioned, putting in the Mystic Forge, the insignias, we already know. Those are already tied to stat sets that the players understand from crafting. So why would you add an additional thing? Well, we have stuff here that we can craft again. We're already familiar with crafting. Don't bother adding changing the transmutation stones. Just make it another crafting recipe.
The thing is, what I was thinking is going along with that. Plus, you'd be using a T-stone anyways in the Mystic Forge recipe. This would add another utility function for the T-stones because I don't use them as much as I thought I would.
Right, but the thing with the seals is you'd have to change the transmutation stone interface because right now you can only put 2 things in there.
Yeah, why would you have to add...
I guess you put it in the other side.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought the transmutation stone took up.
There'd be no change to the... Yeah. There'd be no change to the interface. All they'd have to do is create a new icon for each of those things and code them in. You could craft them by taking like an insignia, so people already understand the base system, and then add on like a stamp base or a writ sheet or a whatever you'd use for seals. Do you think it would really actually add that much of a complexity that it would be an issue, Kate? Or do you think that Guild Wars 2 players could... Do you think it would make sense?
Personally, like, I would understand it, but remember that I play the game every day, and I'm involved in the community, I'm involved online with it, and I'm, like, it's very much a part of my hobbies, what I do all the time. For a player that's coming in, it's another unnecessary system. I don't understand why we should introduce more things, because look at all the stuff you're putting on your armor. You have jewels you can put on your armor, you have crests, you have runes, you have that's 3 different things right there you can put on your armor. There's many varieties of each type. It's already crazy, and then you add
And
seals, stamps, sigils. There's so much stuff going on there that I'd rather just have it simple.
and then there's the added thing of you have to use a transmutation crystal to even use the seal, and that have to be 100% transparent somehow. If not, people would just be buying them off the auction house and be like, "Oh my God, why can't I use this? And I have to use the cash shop. What?"
Yeah.
So you think now it would be a convenience item though? So do you think that it would necessarily be a bad thing to tie the cash shop into it?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's still a slightly convoluted way to do it.
Kate, what do you think? Cash shop, yay or nay? Because what you could do is just add the items in and have them be applyable.
It would be fine on the cash shop. My problem is the availability of transmutation crystals in game is almost 0. I don't believe dailies reward them anymore, so I'm not sure where you can actually get them without spending either gold on gems or money on gems themselves.
I mean, you pretty much can't, which is why I don't use them, because I don't have them.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
So, in addition to solve that, which I would be entirely okay with, is turning your fine transmutation stones, or your transmutation stones, I forget they renamed them, into transmutation crystals by sinking like 5 or so into the Mystic Forge. That allows you to... It makes zone exploration, because you get like 3 transmutation stones per zone. It makes that more of a thing that you might want to go out and do. It would really people have so many I have like 100 in my bank. I'm just using them on alts like every 5 levels because I can't get rid of them.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I didn't realize that they had removed the fine transmutation stones from daily. That's kind of lame.
Literally, the only way to get them are from Black Lion chests, which I've gotten them once because the keys from the story, and buying them straight up from the cash shop.
Okay. Interesting.
So well, I guess, yeah, in the end they would have to change some stuff for the Mystic Forge, but I would allow it if it didn't overly complicate anything else.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what they do with stat swapping, and if they do make it available to people who don't have legendaries. I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with that, and with the gear stats and everything. Well, I think that's going to be it for the show. Really quick, Kate, favorite part of the current patch?
Ooh, South Sun Survival. I'm really enjoying dying and then follow haunting people.
Nice. Evie?
Arena. Definitely Arena.
Nice. Alright, my favorite part. Necros getting the basic bigger marks. Anything that makes Necros better, I'm a fan of. So that's been my favorite. That's my favorite.
About thieves.
Yeah, no, thieves suck. I'm sorry, Evie. Oh man, table flip. Evie has table flipped. Oh. Alright, well, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good week, and we'll see you guys in game, hopefully. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.